please welcome, if you will, Adam and Rob from Advent.
I'm going to talk a little bit about Advent and my history, how I got to run the company, and then going to pass over to Rob, because this will be rather frightening for you. A year ago, Rob was one of you, and we've managed to turn him into a suit, which is quite depressing for him. He graduated from Sheffield and has come through in journalism, but came through straight to PR, so he can talk about those interchangeable skills. So, we are 20 years old this year. We're based in the city. We are slightly unusual for PR companies in that everybody who works for us, there's 14 of us, everybody is a trained or experienced journalist. Now, the reason we did that originally was, and this, I'm sorry, I'm feeling old already, this is going to make me feel even older. Back in the day, before laptops and internet and social media, every city had a freelance journalist who used to work in the city, and every time there was a murder or a crime, somebody used to drive up from Fleet Street, where the Nationals were based, and come sit in his office or use him to be what they called their stringer. And when I set up, I sort of took over his business. So we used to have to go to do court reporting. We used to get a lot of commissions from national newspapers for sports reports. So we had to go up to what was then, before the RICO was even built, report on Coventry City. This is how long ago it was. Coventry City were in the Premier League, for any of you who are football fans, so that's ancient history. So we had to have trained journalists, but actually that's turned out to be our USP, and I'll come on to explain why. We offer full PR services, not marketing. We do some web design, some brochure design that we farm out with a sister company of ours, but predominantly it's around media, profile raising, and the bit we'll come on to in digital skills. We do a lot of crisis media management, so that might be from a company in financial trouble, it might be a health and safety thing. We had one the other day, not in this area, and I won't tell you where it is, but a teacher, I'm sure Daniel, this is on video, isn't it? I'm sure Daniel never does this, but a teacher in a year 7 class got a whiteboard, plugged his phone in to put a presentation on, and a rather unfortunate image came up on the screen in front of all the pupils. So they ring us to say, if the press find out, what should we do? So we advise them on a strategy, we come up with statements for them, and then we deal with the press. We take the client out of it altogether. The reason we do that is, years ago we worked for a company called Luminar Leisure, who owned Skydome in the centre of Coventry. They got a nightclub up in Blackburn. They had a stabbing there. Very nice teenage receptionist, just trying to be friendly to a journalist who rang up, and he said, I gather you've had a stabbing, can I speak to the manager? And she said, yes, it's a bit like buses, isn't it? We haven't had one for 10 years, and now we've had 2 in a week. And the journalist didn't know about the first one. So we stop them speaking to the staff, speaking to journalists at all. We now do an awful lot of social media. I think 23 Twitter accounts we look after, Instagram accounts, Facebook accounts, less Facebook for us, but a lot of Twitter and also LinkedIn, and we do newsletter production. It's easy to stand here and explain what our services are, but this is what we've done probably in the last month. We've had these successes. So we had 4 unrelated articles in the Sunday Times 2 weeks ago. We've been working, or we worked on a ministerial visit to Coventry and Warwickshire. We have helped a client to be shortlisted in a major industry award, which actually they won. That was the Exhibition News Awards on Friday in the Rico Arena, won the major prize there. We did their whole application form, we interviewed them, we filled out the form. We will come up with a short list of awards that they should enter. And we got a major trade publication, because obviously we deal in general media, but then there's niche trade media, which I'm sure you'll be aware of. So, for instance, this was for a major construction firm. So yes, they want to get into the regional press, but they also want to be in things like Construction News, Building Magazine, and we got one of those up to Coventry. We had a client on 5 Live. I'm sure you all listen to this at 5:30 in the morning. There's a programme called Wake Up to Money, and we got a client on that. 3 Twitter accounts in the last month. And when we set up Twitter, we weren't just, you'll still be amazed how few companies have got it. Some of them know absolutely nothing about it. Some of them are very good at it but don't use it commercially. So we will do anything from set up the account and give it to them to run, set up the account and teach them how to do it, set it up and run it totally ourselves. And I'll come on to which works best. Did a client newsletter, and then we also get really regular coverage on PR news portals that are becoming increasingly important. So in this particular region, and we do work across the country, but in a particular region, there's a thing called Midlands Insider and Business Desk. So they are emailed out every single day to tens of thousands of businesses in the area. And if you can be on them, that's obviously going to be hitting your right market, right the way down to getting into things like the Leamington Courier and the Leamington Observer, if that's where our clients want to be. I sort of sat where you guys did once. I went down to university where I think it wasn't a great university. The only famous person I think who's ever been there is Jeremy Corbyn. It was the North London University and did history and classics. But I'd always wanted to be, like you guys do, in media in some shape or form. Always been interested in media. Obviously in those days it was primarily newspapers. And the way I sort of got onto it was by volunteering. So there was a newspaper that used to go to all the higher education establishments in London called the London Student. So I know you guys have a newspaper, and there's the Warwick Boar at Warwick. This was one that went to all colleges, so I worked out if I got some experience for that, it was going to give me some quite good exposure. So I literally volunteered to go and do sports reporting. That was my thing. So I went off and did university hockey matches, went and did features with Olympic athletes who'd gone to certain universities, just put myself out mostly at weekends to get that work for that experience. And then also read as much media as I could. Nothing infuriates us more when we get people in for interview and they're just not aware of what's going on in the media. I don't know how many of you are into sport. I feel a bit guilty saying this, but we had a girl up for an interview about a year ago, and to be fair to her, it was connected to 2021, so I didn't expect her to know anything about sport. But it was the day after Andy Murray, the tennis player, had helped Great Britain win something. And we said to her, how do you take your media? And she said, usually off my iPhone. I said, oh, great. I said, so you've heard that we've won the Davis Cup? And she went, have you? Well done. I went, no, we haven't won the Davis Cup. Great Britain have won the Davis Cup. So that was sort of interview virtually finished. Work experience, absolutely battered our local, regional newspaper to go and do shifts for them, to do everything from literally making the tea to then them allowing me to go out at weekends and do reporting on sort of amateur sports, if you like, just to get that bank of experience. So I did the 3 years at university. In those days, you could do a post-grad course, an NCTJ. Daniel, you know about that? So National Council for the Training of Journalists. So that's the top-up bit you do to your degree to get your full qualifications. But in those days, I was very lucky that the evening newspaper, that was the largest paper in the country at the time, the Express and Star, which comes out of Wolverhampton, that's where I'd done my work experience. So I managed to get onto their course, which on the good thing meant I didn't have to, in today's currency, take a loan. In the bad thing, to save money, even back then, they expected you to qualify in 6 months as opposed to a year, because obviously then they put you out to work. And that involved all the standard things, so 100 words a minute shorthand, which you still do now, don't you, for NCTJ, which is possibly the hardest thing I've ever had to learn, because to do it in 6 months is just ridiculous. 60 words, typing, law, local government, all those things you need to qualify as a journalist. You'd think that shorthand isn't much use nowadays, but actually for journalists it's still really good, because we'll go to a press conference, be in the audience, the person speaking will relay something to us, we can pick up our pad and we can type it straight in, or we can dictate it if we're in the car and we've got to get the copy back quickly. Anybody with a dictaphone who's just recorded it has to listen to it again and type it, listen to it again and type it. So it's still a skill worth doing. It is the worst thing, though, because 100 words a minute is about me speaking this quickly. So to get that down, you have to be absolutely word perfect. The Express and Star owned a chain of newspapers across the Midlands. And again, times have changed, so I had to go and work there for 18 months. I couldn't leave. It was almost like, not quite slavery, but you had to stay there. You had to live in the circulation area of your newspaper, really to embed you into the community. And what they were doing was teaching you how to unearth stories and how to handle media pressure when you know the people involved. You know, it's very easy to go in somewhere and do a critical story, or what we used to call, and you still do as well, death knocks. You know, some unfortunate person's fallen off a bus and been run over, and you have to go and knock the door and speak to the parents. Very difficult when that's your community So they deliberately made you live there for that reason. Moved to join their Stafford office. So I was so I'd gone from Wolverhampton to Shropshire to Stafford because I wanted to get into sport. So they had a sort of top semi-professional football team. So I had to do all the normal stuff, which was council meetings, stories, going out, doing those death knocks, going to court, and do the sport at weekends on top to get into that. But then I got to move over to another daily paper within the group to actually do my full-time sports reporting for football club Shrewsbury Town, who were then, in the Championship, in the second division to the Premiership. So sort of 28, you were going and doing match reports, home and away, dealing with national journalists all the time, just sort of really honing skills. And sports reporting, certainly in terms of then, before the rise of digital media, was extremely pressured, because you used to have a newspaper, none of you I'm sure will know this, that used to come out at 6 o'clock every Saturday evening, and people used to queue up and buy the newspaper. Well, for it to have been printed and produced and in the newsagents by 6:30, when you're still at the match at 4:50, anything that you dictated or you typed went in the paper. So it was quite a responsibility to do that. But after 2 years, wanted to move up again, and got hunted by locally here, the Coventry in the Premiership, and they wanted somebody to come over and do that, so I moved over here. I spent 8 years doing that. Used to have to do the club home and away, so you would be the main point of contact doing both that sports newspaper and the normal newspaper. You had to have a back page story every single day of the week, so there was quite a pressure on you to perform. I had to write a column and co-present a BBC phone-in programme. I just got into that. They asked me to go and do it, so I did that for about 8 or 10 years with another guy. That was your classic phone-in on like you get with 606 or what have you on Radio 5. Some people can do both. I know a lot of radio people who are really good writers, but I know lots of written journalists or media people who aren't particularly good at the broadcasting side of it. That shift pattern meant that I had every Friday off. So you can tell why I'm so interesting, because obviously I had no work-life balance whatsoever. So I'd work Monday till Thursday and then Saturday. So on the Friday, I got to know a couple of national journalists. So I asked if I could do shifts down at the Sun. So I used to go down on a Friday morning at 6 o'clock, do the shift there, just really filling the paper with sports news, subbing, copy, supplying all that, just really to gain contacts. And after about a year of that, I had a choice, because they offered me 3 days a week down in, you don't know most of this, do you? They offered
London as well.
They offered me 3 days a week down in London, but it wasn't enough to fill. And I'd spotted a sort of, in a way, a gap in the market, because it was in the infancy, really, of PR and marketing agencies. So I'd be sitting there getting stories coming in from PR people that were badly written, so they're written by marketeers, not journalists, so the style wasn't correct. They were irrelevant geographically, subject matter, the story was buried down. So most of them used to rip them up and throw them in the bin, and thinking these companies are paying these people. There's a gap in the market here. So I decided to leave. Do you want to? So set up in 98. When I say CNS, that was that little news agency I talked about earlier on, where there was a freelance journalist. So I took over that business. And that sort of paid half my wages, if you like. And most of that was going up to the RICO, or the predecessors of the RICO, because, I don't know if you know this, all national newspapers used to employ one sports person in each area. So the Midlands had one. And with respect to, show of hand, how many from here are you actually from Coventry? Just one then, right. So that's all right. So the choice was to this national paper, do you want to go and watch Aston Villa play Man United? Yes. Or do you want to come and watch Coventry play Bolton? No. So we used to get the orders and get paid per match for doing those. 20 years on, so as we're the largest PR firm in Coventry, we employ 14 staff. 12 of those have got a journalistic background, and we actively seek to employ people with that background. Some companies are specialists. You get travel PR firms, you get industrial manufacturing PR firms. We're not. We operate right the way across the board. We work for builders, hoteliers, lawyers, insolvency practitioners, concert promoters,
Nightclubs.
Nightclubs, yeah. As we know, to our cost. We were supposed to go and there's a club in Coventry called the Rialto. I don't know if you know it, like a live music venue. Right. Well, they had a 90s boy band play there on.
I was there, front row. Nicholas.
Well, we were Saturday night. We were supposed to be interviewing the guy who handles the accounts away. So I said, "Don't worry, I'll do it." 6:30, and they finally showed up about 20 to 10. So we do all sorts, and you'll recognise that Campanile, so a French hotel chain right across the country. CVR Global is a insolvency practitioner and accountant in the City of London. But then some other local companies you'll know. We do Wasps. I was touch wood here. The Rico Arena we've actually PR'd since before it was built. So that's now 13 years ago. They had a big campaign because there was a shortage of money the council had when it was going to be built. And we mobilised the business community in Coventry and Warwickshire to bombard the media with letters, with messages, all about the fact that if you don't take this opportunity, council, and fund this is not going to happen. So we did that. And we do the jockey club, so we look after Cheltenham Racecourse, where they've just had Cheltenham Festival. We look after Warwick Racecourse. So it really is extremely varied. And it will mean that you're doing one story 1 minute. I mean, we've got a story coming up in the next 2 weeks where we know there's going to be a major investment in Coventry of like more than £100 million, and we will deal with that right the way from the off, right the way through to delivery. Those are basically the services we offer. Majority of what we have to do is still producing media releases. 10 years ago, I sat down in front of a company and I said, right, we charge X amount for three media releases. And a lot of companies had had their fingers burnt with sort of marketing agencies saying, well, I need 3 days a month, but they were never quite sure what they got. Now it's turned on its head. So we will produce copy that is a bit of collateral that we will then rewrite and reshape. So it might be for the media. We might then rewrite it as a blog. We might do it as on social media, so we might then retweet that blog. So we have a bit of copy that we create, but it can be used in any number of ways. And our sort of ability is knowing how to write differently for that market. As I said, social media, we have designed and built the odd website in conjunction with a web builder, but we tend to do the upkeep. We tend to do the news items, keep changing the copy all the time. Do a lot of copywriting. We do quite a lot of speech writing. There's a thing in every area of the UK called local enterprise partnerships, which basically decide where government money goes. So they will decide, yes, it needs to be spent £50 million on Coventry Railway Station or what have you. And for them, we do a LinkedIn discussion group in the morning. We do, that turns into a tweet. We do their news section of their website. We do their media. We write the website right the way up to the point where we write the speeches for the chairman when he's addressing ministers. So there's that continuum of message from what might seem a fairly insignificant LinkedIn post in the morning right the way through to when they're speaking to government. And we get involved occasionally in government announcements. There was a £85 million announcement just before Christmas that the future testing and development centre for electric car batteries is going to be produced in Coventry, Warwickshire, and that was us doing that. We do a little bit of this sort of stuff, and then increasingly we've started to do more video. Staff-wise, just to get the structure of a company, so we have a receptionist. We always try and recruit a local apprentice as a receptionist. We've got a very good one at the moment. We've had some ones have been a bit mixed. We had one, our first one, we thought hiring apprentices would be dead easy because we had our first one and she was really good, really keen. Not a young apprentice, about 19, 20. Came in one day and she was doing a part-time course here at the university in HR. She came to see me and said, Adam, I'm leaving. And I went, oh, that's a real shame. How are you managing to do that? She said, well, my mum won the bingo last night. And I said, well, how much did she win? No, I didn't say that. I said, oh, right, that's great, but it's quite expensive to go through uni. She said, well, I can't tell you how much it is, but she's putting my 4 brothers through their HGV driving tests, and I think they're about 10 grand a time. And she's paying me to go to university full-time. So I said, fine. It was a real shame. She enrolled here full-time, swapped course after the first year to do project management, and is now a senior engineering project manager at Jaguar. So we thought, it was great. She came in after 2 years of qualifying at university, she came back and used to see us and came back to thank us and bought chocolates and all that sort of stuff. And all our staff were going, oh, isn't this lovely? Kid from the streets, ended up with Jaguar, And then she said, I've got to go because I've got to go and pick up my new Jaguar company car. And suddenly there was no sympathy left in the room whatsoever. But she's done really well. So we have a single office manager who does our accounts. We take on an intern every year. We've currently got one from Coventry University. We've taken them from Bournemouth, University West of England, and also City University in Birmingham. And they work for a client 2 days a week and for us 3 days a week. We have a graduate, and not anymore. We have taken on probably 5 or 6 graduates over time. Usually they are people who have applied on spec. So Rob, as he'll tell you, applied for a job that he was nowhere near qualified for, but we quite like the fact he'd been ballsy enough to qualify, and when we've seen what he'd done while at university, that's what persuaded us. Some of our graduates have gone on to, there's one working in a West End, very glam PR agency at the moment. There's another one who is a senior producer for Sky Sports News, and another one is a press officer for the International Olympic Committee. So they go on to various interesting things. That's the sort of structure we have: junior account manager, senior, director, I have a fellow director, and then me as managing director. What we look for, these I probably could have put these up 20 years ago and they would have been exactly the same, or 30 years ago when I was looking for a job. We want keenness. We want people knocking our door, taking interest. Ability to write, obviously, is important. We go to loads of award ceremonies where they give away innovation awards, and innovation is really important. Yes, it is. If somebody said to me, what's the one word you would want in staff that you employ, and it's inquisitiveness for us. We want people to be inquiring, to find out, to read random things online or on a weekend in the newspaper, and to be media hungry, to understand. I mean, they were work experience, but they were A-level, who actually asked us if the Kenilworth Weekly News was a daily newspaper. Well, that's almost a sort of waste of time for us. The clue's in the title. Ability to mix, social interaction, being able to mix with clients. You know, quite often Rob will be dealing with guys or women who are 65 or 60 or run their own business employing hundreds of people. So ability to mix outside your group is really important. Reliability, and we don't have an issue with that at all, young or old. Loyalty, you know, we've interviewed various people who've said they're coming and then the next week they go somewhere else. So loyalty is quite important because we will then repay it with a structure. Now, Rob thinks this is a setup. I wrote this on Wednesday and put driving licence. Unbeknownst to me, Rob had got his driving test on Thursday and failed. And then I asked him to check through the slides on Friday morning. So he thought I was just being really horrible to him there, which I wasn't. Because if you've got a driving licence to get around, as Rob will tell you from many late night shifts at the Rico, it makes it really difficult if you can't drive. And I know through my kids, the temptation is you come to university, you haven't got your licence, well, I'm not going to need it, so you put it off for 3 years. I would definitely, from an employer's point of view, recommend doing that. And now, Rob's going to talk through, I think, next slide, Rob, is it you?
It's me, I'm no longer just a clicker. So.
No, go on, I'll click, you talk.
Oh, fantastic. So, when Adam sort of first told me that I was going to come and speak to you, I was sort of a bit confused why, and now I'm here looking down at you thinking, well, that was obviously me 2 years ago. So, I went to uni in Sheffield, I studied journalism, just straight journalism degree, and I did basically, my path's actually quite similar to Adam's, worryingly, hearing him speak. I did the NCTJ, which was all the shorthand and the law, and by now they've brought in web, so as you'll see as I talk here, I've learned much more about social media, broadcasting online than possibly Adam did when he was coming up. And
didn't exist.
Didn't exist. And skills in software was a big thing for me at uni. I'm sure that you guys do this in your degree. I went into all the Adobe suite, all the various video equipment, and basically any audio editing. I've got a skill set now where I can do pretty much all of that alongside my standard writing and standard journalism, which is obviously still the key to me as a person. But Forge Press, so again, sort of what Adam said, he mentioned about writing for student publications. So I'm sure you guys have got a uni paper here. I don't know what it's called, but when I went to uni, I straight away got involved with Forge Press, which was our student paper at the University of Sheffield. And basically, I was writing, going into all the sports reporting. So very similar to what I've done recently, so football reporting, rugby reporting, but I'd be doing it on a uni level. So do you guys have varsity between Warwick and Coventry? So I'd be at every single event for that across the however long span it was, and basically putting together a newspaper that goes out every week, web content, And basically, I got to sports editor in my final year and helped to sort of reinvent it. It even helped to design that slightly shoddy logo it looks like now, but it was pretty nice at the time. And yeah, so that was me coming through uni and basically making sure that you get involved in every opportunity you can and try to get that professional experience, even if maybe you aren't going into those professional environments as of yet.
So all three of us here, I think I can speak for all three of us, worked for our student newspapers in some way, shape or form.
Yeah.
But none of us are journalists now. So it's really important for you to take those opportunities that give you a variety of different skills and experiences, even if it's not what you want to do, because of those transferable skills and because of the knowledge and the contacts you're going to gain from it. I don't want to be a journalist, and I didn't particularly want to be a journalist, but I knew I wanted to work within the media. Working for a student newspaper will allow me to experience that, even if it's just in a small way. And that's really useful and beneficial when you're coming to finding genuine post-academic professions.
Susan, we've got somebody who did work experience with us who was really keen, so we thought we'd help him. And it's a really circuitous route sometimes you can take. So he is now at City University doing the post-grad in broadcast journalism. But he just got his work experience with us, with Touch FM, I think he did a week at Mercia, a week at the Coventry Telegraph, got onto this course, but we were able just to put him in touch with an arts-based PR firm, and every single time in the holidays he went to work for them, for Coleman Getty, really well-known PR firm. They do the PR for the Booker Prize, for the British Film Institute, really top-notch. And he's just had a final interview on graduation with them. And it's only because they remembered him from... It's difficult. Sometimes you make yourself a bit of a pain in the arse if you knock on the door too often, but it's about judging it right. And he judged it exactly right, and he's got an interview, and he should, touch wood, be starting in a month. He's a sort of family friend, and we've been teasing because he said all he's got left is a personality test, which he has to go through, and we've said I'd look for a different career if I were you. But it is doing exactly what Rob did. It's about getting that range of experience. Rob?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'd 100% encourage you to get involved in any student media you can, because it takes you out of your little student bubble as well at times, which is definitely interesting. And then it comes into this as well, with I basically found in my holidays, I could have just gone home to Birmingham every time. You see, I did go home the one time. But it's all about getting the experience you can under your belt. So for me, I was coming through uni and I wanted to be a journalist. I wanted to be a sports writer. That was what I wanted to do. So I immediately went straight to do a sport placement at the Sheffield Star, which is the big paper up in Sheffield. And obviously you get all about the introduction to the workplace environment and everything that everyone will tell you about work experience. But at the same time, it gets you into the newsroom environment and understand what the media needs, which is evident for when you come down to eventually getting into PR. And I just built on that, basically, and went to do news at Sheffield Star to see if I could expand on that even more, see if I could get better at increasing my skill set. And then, basically, that took me to the Birmingham Mail, which was the paper I always read when I was growing up, because I'm from Sutton Coldfield in Birmingham. And that was quite a big thing for me, because as a big Aston Villa fan, I met the sort of reporters I used to read when I was growing up, and that was quite interesting. And I got to shadow them. And again, it's just building more and more experience and building your confidence in that sort of media world and showing that you can, if you show your skill set there, they might remember you. So I've previously, in say the last couple of weeks, I've placed a story with the Birmingham Mail with their sports reporters, and the guy remembers me. Or I went to do football reporting with Adam a couple of months ago, walked into the press room at the Rico, and the Sheffield United reporter was there, recognised me straight away. It's all about building sort of the contacts up with these things. But for me, so I did news, and I thought, well, how can I expand myself even more? And that's when I first tried PR, which was I went to HR Media, which is a very similar sized company to Advent, but again based in Sheffield. And it shows me that I can transfer all those skills over. So if everything you learn on the media side, on the journalism side, it can all be transferred into PR, because realistically, you've got to know exactly what the media wants, and that is exactly what you get from these two things, and then go into that. And, that's how I got there, really. And then Advent. So as Adam mentioned, I basically was applying for, as you'll probably know, after university you start applying for everything. Like anything that comes up, you're applying for it. And so I had about 3 months of applying for jobs, interviews, not quite getting there. And I was on LinkedIn one day and I saw Advent's come up. And I think it wanted, how many years experience was it? 2?
3, I think.
2 or 3, yeah. And I just applied for it because I thought, why not? and I got called in to discuss opportunities, which was, at the time, I didn't really know what that meant.
I'm not sure we did, to be honest.
No. Probably about 2 months later for that, I got offered the job, which was good because I ended up writing economic reports for some company in Birmingham, and it really wasn't the best thing to do. But so now I basically work across a wide range of clients, such as Adam alluded to. So I'm sure you know of the Casbah nightclub. So that was my first client I was given, which obviously is a bit eye-opening and opens you up to immediately to the media management problems. I'm sure you've seen plenty of things. I don't know, were you guys at university when they got sued by Donald Trump at all? Yeah. That was an interesting day. Yeah.
They don't realise. I've got to be careful if it's on tape. This thing about any publicity is good publicity. Before you guys would have been there, they bought Europe's biggest mirror ball, right? And then they realised they couldn't get it. So that was a story. Then they realised they couldn't get it through the door, so they had to take the door out. So that was another story. Now then, rather unfortunately, it did actually fall off and land on a student at one of their dance nights. But that was a story. So they got 3 stories out of their mirror ball. They're interesting. Yeah. And they're really good to work with because, again, they come onto us because they want publicity. So for us, it makes it a dream client, really.
And from there, this is not just that. I do other music ventures. I do the Rialto that Adam alluded to, but I also do sports teams. So I don't know how much you guys are into sport in the region. So there's Wasp Rugby, and then there's a netball subsidiary team now called Wasp Netball. So I've basically become the main PR man for that. So if you ever watch netball on TV, you tend to see me in the background running around, being basically the media man for them. So I suppose that's another example of what we do at Advent. Rather than based in the office, I genuinely go to these games and I manage the media from that side of it. So it's like mini press conferences every single time. And then we do things like accounts, so I help out on everyone's various accounts. And I've recently started doing the Warwick race course as well. So I've stayed in sport quite a bit, but at the same time I'm still getting that examples of various different things to do. A big thing that I've been given, really, since I turned up at Advent is social media, probably because I'm probably the younger face in the office. Yeah. So I do 10 accounts a day, which takes probably about 3 hours of my time every day to do tweets and stuff. So that's probably something that somebody who would have joined Advent 10 years ago wouldn't have had to think about. And that varies from architecture to construction, agriculture. Yeah, that builds my knowledge. I know far too much about random little things in architecture now, just because I tweet about it. Social media is vital, which we'll come on to later. Video content, that's another thing that I've sort of brought to Advent, really, I suppose. Not to blow my own trumpet at all.
That's true.
I learned to do that at university and was given sort of a basic skill set for it, and it's added value content to the press release. So if we ever can, we'll try to add that onto the top of it. And obviously securing coverage for the clients and assisting colleagues on various other campaigns that we do, that's basically my role at Advent now. But yeah, it's very, very varied, as you can see.
Right. So Rob will come back in a second. So with the changing media landscape, the digital things become absolutely so important, and you have been taught this. With when I left the Telegraph here, it was selling 83,000 copies a night. I think it now sells 17,000. So that's how much it's changed. And even 3 or 4 years ago, clients would say to us, well, yeah, it's great, I've been on the website, but when am I going to be in the paper? Now it's exactly the opposite. So it's really click first, print second. And we've had to learn that because there's so many tricks of the trade that you can do to get better coverage online, which are coming to. And Trinity Mirror, so they are the largest regional newspaper, largest paper company now in the country. They've got no video staff, or very few video staff, very few photographers. If you take a paper like the Telegraph, probably 20 years ago it had 10 photographers. It's now got 1 photographer. He might even be freelance.
I think he's freelance.
So the ability to supply professionally taken, I don't mean us doing it, we have a freelance photographer who sits in our office full time. Is really, really important. And it absolutely came home to me this point. I went to see the editor. We had a City of Culture story that was sticking, and it was a story that we'd done, but we knew that every other city bidding for City of Culture had to put out. It was about what they needed to do to apply. So we were able to tell it had been in the Sunderland Echo, it had been in the Stoke Sentinel, but it hadn't been in the Coventry Telegraph. And I went to see the editor about it and what have you. Anyway, just as I'm leaving to go to his office, They send out a daily bulletin, and again, I would definitely get onto it. You might not be from Coventry, but just to be around news stories in this area is good. And if they'd have done it a few years ago, it would have been, you know, council does this, Rico does that. Well, I clicked on it, and the first item was about click on this postcode to see if you've got more vermin in Coventry in your CV postcode than in any other one. Don't know whether I'd call that news, but it's clickbait. Second one, written like a travel guide, wasn't it? Literally like a travel guide, was the top 10 dogging sites in Coventry, Warwickshire. Like lay-by, room for 9 cars, and all this sort of stuff. So I teased the editor. When I went to see him, I said, is this really news? And he leant back in his chair and looked through a window in his office to a digital screen, and he said, 386 people have clicked on that story in the last 10 minutes, and that's earned me such and such. And then we found out that if you click on a story, obviously they get paid. If you click on a video, Trinity Mirror earn 20 times more money if somebody clicks on a video than if they click on a story. So it's really incumbent upon us as providers to start providing video. So we've started to do that a lot more, and it doesn't have to be fantastic quality. Sometimes they like the very sort of eyewitness mobile phone stuff. We spent £300 on a bit of kit that fits on an iPhone, and we do all our videoing now on iPhone. So when I went to see this singer from 5 on Saturday, I just had to sit there with a phone and interview him, and I know that will get that story used. And it doesn't, yes, it matters in terms of content, but we deliberately sent them a business story video that we knew wasn't the world's most exciting story. It was like a flyover of some industrial development, and they snapped their hands off for it. They are really video hungry, and I'm sure you know this, and you probably know it better than me. When you click on a video on a news website, you know you get that microscopic bit of the video, and then it stops and your advert comes in. That's working out where you are, who you are, what stories you've accessed before, and that microsecond totally shapes what advert you then see, and then that's sold off virtually between advertising agencies. Yeah.
Yes, mate.
So Rob has developed digital skills, he tells me.
I have,
so
somehow. So I'll just encourage you basically to get all the digital skills under your belt that you can while you're here, because even basic understanding of coding, which I never thought I'd need, I still end up using in various sort of websites, and I'm helping out people with their websites, make sure I can get things up there, getting a video onto the website that maybe doesn't have the capability for it. And also, mobile journalism is probably a thing I'd hope you'd know about. But the premise is that you do everything from the scene. So, for example, I'll use my netball example. I'll be at the match. I'll write the press report. I could do it all on my phone, but I tend to do it on like a laptop, and I could send everything from the scene straight back to where I'm meant to be. And again, as well, it's good understanding of SEO, which is search engine optimization. Always worry I'm going to get that wrong, but that's just making sure that people can get to your website, making sure that everybody knows how to get there, and it pops up in your Google searches, because the fact of the matter is most people aren't going to go straight to the websites. Is it video next? So this is a short example of one of the videos that I put together. So this sort of shows you.
yeah, you're going to say what I'm going to say.
Go on.
It doesn't have to be. We did this on an iPhone, and it was a story about the start of a building. So it isn't a sexist story. It's not, with respect, the best video in the world, but it got absolutely ridiculous usage as a result.
The Wiggly Group have been developing the whole site for the last 35 years. So the Edric Point development is the last piece in the puzzle. They will be units from 5,000 square foot up to 20,000 square foot. There's a clear need for speculative, small industrial development. As part of the Chamber, we're doing a lot with employment land. There is a clear requirement out there, and we're just trying to accommodate that.
We bought the property way back in 1987 off Alfred Herbert's, along with another 26 acres which have been developed over the years. And this is the last remaining part of the property which we bought all those 30 odd years ago. And in some ways it's very sad to see it go, because along with it goes a lot of history. The company's come a long way in that time. We've got an ever-expanding portfolio of properties around the city and beyond. And this is in many ways putting our toes in the water of the property market.
This is the first speculative development to take place in Coventry for some considerable time. It's important for Coventry, particularly as it's now City of Culture 2021. There's this massive inward investment by the Wiggly Group that tracks manufacturing, storage, logistics, and an important distribution network for Coventry.
Now, I'm fully aware that isn't of interest to you. I wouldn't have been interested to me 2 years ago either. But the Coventry Telegraph used that video, and they used the article because we sent them the video. And it's of interest to the people who this business are trying to get to, trying to attract people, attract tenants to their property.
So in the way that journalists previously would be much more likely to read your story if you sent them basically what you wanted them to write and they could kind of edit it and include it. Now sending videos and images is really a much better way to get your story included because they don't have the staff to do this anymore.
And you might do it separately, so you might send the story first and then say to them, look, we have got video content if you want it. And most journalists, it's interesting, we hear from journalists that there's some PR companies they don't want to deal with. Again, because of that journalistic background, they know that the material we produce will be written in exactly the right way for them, and that just makes their life obviously a lot easier. Rob.
Social media. Now, again, you guys all know about social media. You use it just as I did when you were growing up. We've all grown up with it. So, but now every business is trying to get into it because it's a different way of attracting audiences. Particularly the Wiggly Group, who we just watched the video of, they're obsessed with it. They pay for their advertising all the time on Facebook. They view it as a way to get to people which maybe in traditional media coverage won't get them. So we can do day-to-day or concentrated campaigns, really. A lot of the stuff I do is obviously day-to-day. So for various accounts, trying to promote these people to their audiences. Or a concentrated campaign, which I'll bring on in the next slide. So we did one recently for a property conference in France that Adam had the pleasure of going to. And basically, we did tweets every day to target the right people who were there on that time. I basically, for every client I have, I build a bank of content from images to videos to news articles. I build that all onto my computer so at any time I can pick it out and put it out there. So obviously, images, videos, I don't have to tell you, the people watch those, they'll see those more, they'll click on them more, and you get more engagement. And of course, you've got to maintain your brand as well, so you can't go off-brand. There's the odd occasion where you might tweet something and the client might say to you, oh, we wouldn't say that, and then from then on, you'll never do that again because you know exactly what they're trying to say. So, for example, if you're in the house building industry, you wouldn't post an article criticising the house building industry, but I did that once. So
did you?
I did.
Oh, okay.
Social media schedules, yep. So times are really important. I build into some of the WASP schedules, and they basically nail me on every time. So I can't tweet outside of 9 a.m, 1 p.m, and 4 p.m. slots because if I do it outside of that, I'm not going to get anyone looking at my tweets according to them. It's obviously interchangeable for the various people, but that's what they advise. And when I'm out on a story, so doing the standard journalism job, I'm there and I'm always getting my content from my social media. So I've been recently picked up the PR for a disabled charity called Enterprise Club, which are based in Stoke in Coventry. And basically I went down there to do a story probably 2 days ago now. And while I was there, I went round the club and made sure I got photos of everything in there. So I had stuff to put onto their social media throughout the week ahead. What you use is dependent on your type of business. So LinkedIn, if you're an accountant, you're going to get more people engaged with you on LinkedIn. If you're the Casbah nightclub, no one's going to engage with you on LinkedIn. And Facebook is, again, it's more of a tough nut to crack, isn't it, Facebook? Because you're not so certain. Not many people are on Facebook looking for their business news, really. So I'd say Twitter and LinkedIn are the key ones for PR, really, unless you're looking into leisure sort of industries.
Yeah. And so Rob mentioned this campaign. So we represented about 30 companies, as Rob said, somebody got to do it, in the south of France a couple of weeks ago. And they're all from the commercial property world, but there are 32,000 delegates at this one show. It is enormous. It's that big that they produce an 84-page newspaper every single day just to go to this show. So we had to build a schedule, because I'm very busy when I'm there, so what we wanted to do is build up a bank of material that we could put out. We use videos, infographics, images, news items, really to make sure that we were up there and amongst the conversation. And we had, as it says there, 55,000 impressions and 1,000 engagements. But when I say we plan it, that was the Twitter content for the whole week.
That was just for Monday, Tuesday, and a bit of Wednesday.
Right. So you can see the detail that we used on that. And again, what we did for that was to use those clients that we were representing, get some content that they could put on their website that they'd be happy with, but B, that we could then talk to, we could then split and use on social media, and I'll show you that. Again, not the world's most exciting video, but I'll explain why we used it.
Coventry and Warwickshire have always got a strong offer when they go over to midfield. And all the same issues, there's two things that are really, really worth noting. Number one is we've got emblems, symbols, if you like, for national, international showcasing through the UK City of Culture for 2021 and the Commonwealth Games in 2022. But then alongside that, of course, our growth rate at the moment, the success of our businesses that have chosen to invest here, but also new investment is outperforming most of the rest of the country.
The recent announcement of the UK BIC development, the battery development, £120 million worth of investment, where we will be at the forefront of battery development, creating new investment and opportunities in the automotive sector.
There's that perception that we've seen in other cities that you have to kind of get over, where we say, come and have a look in Coventry, and it's hard. We drag these people here somehow, kicking and screaming. They walk around Coventry and they are absolutely blown away. They're amazed by the city, the progress the city's making, all the developments that are going on.
You've got to be out there to win business, and it can give you a full year's pipeline of sales, etc. So you've got to be in it to win it.
And come and see Coventry and Warwickshire. There is so much to offer that they may not be aware of, and actually we will continue those relationships that we have done in the past. Partnerships that we forge at MIPIM, they transcend the annual event, and we continue those partnerships year in, year out. It's a fantastic opportunity.
There's an amazing amount of material action going on in Coventry and Warwickshire. That is being brought forward to the Champions events, showcasing what we're doing, and what we're going to be doing at MIPIM is taking that that work which is going on in the city and to say this is a place to do business.
It's fair to say we're very, very much the flavour of the month with central government in terms of those investments. We're a bit of a poster boy for that kind of activity, and certainly we're well placed to capitalise at places like MIPIM.
But I think what it comes down to is we've got a genuine, authentic offer of some of the most amazing companies and growth potential, not just in the UK but across the world.
So that was just a video, again, put together just on an iPhone. And the beauty of that, you'll see there was 4 different organisations there, so we got it onto 4 different websites. We were then able to chop that into pieces, and that went across the 5 days of MIPIM on our Twitter campaign that we did. And we also got, I've got to get it right now, believe it or not, 120 articles published about our presence at MIPIM during that week. We started in January and we finished last week. Right, because of time, I'm going to move on quickly now to City of Culture. So you're going to meet Jen. So she's the she's a marketing manager, does a lot of the digital content. We were engaged very early on for 2021, where the council, to be fair to them, realised that if they ran it, they felt it was better for somebody arm's length to run it. And in fact, out of all the final cities that were shortlisted, Coventry was the only one that had its PR outsourced and wasn't a council-run campaign. It was done by a trust. And I'm just going to pick on one particular story because there's a couple of videos on it. We realised, and I think the trick why we were successful PR-wise, I mean, not the whole bid, was that we realised if you wrote off to a national newspaper and said, oh, we're one of 5 cities bidding, we think Coventry should be City of Culture, come and do a feature on City of Culture in Coventry, they weren't interested because they got 5 other or 4 other cities absolutely wanting the same thing. They had to be seen, especially the BBC, where fairness is their sort of mantra. They had to be balanced. So we realised very early on that we had to unpick out of all the information that was coming out 2 or 3 stories that we knew were good enough to get national coverage, whether we were doing City of Culture or not, but then sew into those stories the fact we were doing City of Culture. So we found 3 very interesting pieces. One of this I'm going to explain, Master G. There was a story out there about how the first black actor ever to play Othello happened to be came to Coventry while slavery was still going on, came to Coventry because he'd been denied opportunity elsewhere. Coventry made him the manager of their theatre. First black actor to ever play Othello, not really recognised in this particular area. We got a double-page spread in the Observer about that, where at last Coventry wasn't just known for specials, Ghost Town, Lady Godiva, it was about something new. But this guy, we realised when we hit on this guy, Master G, who sadly died actually a month ago now, he's 94, and he ran a photography business on the Fosel Road. But it was a portrait photography business. It wasn't anything flash, but he'd done portraits from especially a lot of immigrant families since 1950. So when he retired, they found his work, which actually gave the best catalogue of social migration that they'd found anywhere in the UK. So we thought this is a really good story. It talks about the inclusive nature of Coventry, talks about art, talks about photography, and we were then able to sow into 2021, and you'll see the extent that we did it. So this is we've done this the wrong way around actually, but this is where we managed to get his book published. It's since, by the way, been exhibited in New York and in Mumbai, all from this. It was great. This guy, as I say, just passed away last month, but his daughter rang us and said City of Culture has given him the best year of his life because he was just a photographer in a humble shop, and now he's travelled and seen all this. So we managed to get this onto national news.
Now, there can't be many people who reach the peak of their career at the age of 95, but a photographer from Coventry called Master G has done just that. He arrived in the UK from India in the 1950s to work in a factory and began taking photos of the city's Asian community over a 30-year period from the 1950s to the 1980s. But they only really came to light last year. Now his photographs have finally been published, and his book is being feted around the world. Phil Mackey reports.
After more than half a lifetime as a photographer, Master G has never had a higher profile. His fame came late.
Hello, Master G. Would you like to have a look at your new book?
Yeah, thank you. I can see it. A very nice photo.
He was only discovered when he was 94. Now, a year later, his work is being published for the first time. His work documents a time of change in his home city of Coventry. He photographed the families who, like him, had moved here from India and Pakistan. But his pictures also evoke a moment in modern British history and also show a wry sense of humour.
When I came, in this country, I got only one camera, Brownie. Start from there. I was the first photographer in Coventry.
In the Asian community?
So it knows me, everyone.
Everybody knows you?
Everyone knows me.
This is where all the magic happened. This is Master G's studio in Coventry. This is where the family lived as well, and where generations of people came to get those all-important photographs. And now, aged 95, Master G is getting recognition he never expected. Last year, thousands of people turned up to see an exhibition of Master G's photographs, which prompted the organisers to produce the new book.
In Coventry, there's a sense of familiarity and people telling stories that they're building on the collection that Master G has himself, and people coming up with their own family photographs and stories about their own family photographs, and a real depth of meaning and feeling for the communities in Coventry that Master G recorded.
I can see my father in another light, and not just as my dad, but as a photographer that had skill and talent and knew what he was doing. It's a wonderful way to remember his legacy as well.
Ladies and gentlemen. Last week, Master G received an honorary degree in recognition of his outstanding contribution to the photographic heritage of Coventry, and after appearing on BBC News a year ago, he's had calls from all over the world.
People know you now because of your photography?
Yeah, knows me.
Is that nice?
It's very nice. I'm famous.
Very nice that you're famous?
Yes, very nice, People appreciate to see my picture, So I like it, very much.
And at the grand old age of 95, there's another new chapter in the Master G story. Phil Mackey, BBC News, Coventry.
So that one came last. So we'd already placed the fact that Coventry's bidding for 2021 in these. So
that was national, which is the best you can possibly get. In Coventry,
so we got this onto regional as well.
Retired, a 94-year-old Indian immigrant is gaining international recognition. Next month, we'll see the first exhibition of the work of Maganbhai Patel, better known as Master G. It's the first big event in Coventry's campaign to be City of Culture in 2021. Phil Mackey has been to.
So that report there was. I won't show it you twice because it's going to come up on this. So that was regional news and mentioned 2021 a lot and spoke to organisers. We then, this if you like, we've done them in reverse order. The first one we did, we went to Phil Mackey, who's the chap you saw with a beard. is a reporter for the Midlands for the Nationals. So we went to him with the original story, and this is what spawned all.
After 5 decades running a small photography business in Coventry and 20 years since he retired, a 94-year-old man is gaining international recognition. Next month we'll see the first exhibition of the work of Maganbhai Patel, better known as Master G. It's the first big event in Coventry's campaign to be City of Culture in 2021.
That was the key thing for us.
These portraits, taken decades ago, are now viewed as art. And Master G only had to wait until he was 94. It started out as a hobby, then it became a business. He lived upstairs with his family. The front room was his studio.
There is no Indian photographer. I was the first. And they come to me. And the people make happy, you know. They like me.
This is the new Coventry.
Coventry in the 50s and 60s was thriving. Just rebuilt after the war, it attracted immigrants from all over the world. The photographs don't just document the social history of an immigrant community, but they show the changing face of Coventry, which is why they're going to be shown as part of its 2021 City of Culture bid. The pictures show how immigrants integrated, they capture their aspirations and the changing fashions.
The people had so much light and so much hope in their eyes. And then I love looking at all the photographs from the 1980s upwards, just because of the fashion sense of things.
They're a gateway into understanding Coventry and its Asian community for 50 years, really important period of Coventry's history, and they capture that Asian community as they were living their lives.
Besides an exhibition in Coventry next month, his work is about to be shown in Italy, and he's been nominated for a prestigious prize in Mumbai, the city from which he embarked on his journey to England 66 years ago.
Very proud.
Did you enjoy photography?
Well, I am enjoying photography, everything, but I'm losing money a lot.
You had a great job, but you didn't make enough money.
Because of friendship.
Mates rates.
Yes. I can say that.
And after all these years, he still knows his way around a camera. Phil Mackey, BBC News, Coventry.
He was a man of few words, Master G.
Yeah. But you see that alone, so that wasn't ostensibly about 2021. That was it was a fantastic story when it came in, and some of the images were great. And we knew that if we hit the right media, we could get that message across. So, to get 2 national BBC News and also regional is great, but we knew it would lend itself well to the print media. So we managed to get a feature into the big issue, which again was talked about 2021. We then went and looked at some of the niche media, so we got into Eastern Eye with a full feature. Asian World we got into again with these. The Guardian absolutely loved this. It was absolutely could not be more up their street. Social history, some different images that we used there, and I think they ran a gallery of something like 18 pictures, all about Coventry in about 2021. And then BBC News, we managed to get onto their main website because of that. And it's interesting, when it came to the bidding, and Jen will probably tell you about this, and the announcement. The announcement was actually a bit of a nightmare, really, because we had a team. Rob and a colleague of mine were up in Hull because they made the announcement for City of Culture live on the One Show, and we were down at the Belgrade where we had to get 500 people in the lobby because it was going to be filmed by the BBC on the same night that the Panto started at the Belgrade. And then we got the TV screen up, and the guys will set it up, and they realised, and obviously with mobile technology, everybody's following the decision. There was a minute delay on the transmission from it happening to up there. So with about 20 minutes to go, it might be, they said, would you stand on the balcony and do that if we don't win it, and that if we do win it? Unfortunately, they got it down to about 10 seconds in the end, and it worked absolutely smoothly. But we had notes from the arts editor of the Daily Telegraph and from a guy called Colin Patterson, you probably know him, he's the guy who handbags people on the red carpet at the Oscars and sort of jumps in for the BBC, Scottish reporter. We had notes from both of them before the announcement saying that they hoped Coventry would win because the PR had been so positive. And that was purely from my colleague Lee realising very early on that what we had to do was do it by stealth. It wasn't good enough doing it directly. We had to come up with those stories. So that's just one example of the sort of campaigns we run. Sadly, not most of our stories don't end on with Sophie Rayeth at 6 o'clock reading them out on the BBC News. And really, we've discovered over the years that when you're working for companies in industry, it doesn't even matter sometimes if it is in your local newspaper. It's a question of who reads it. So if you look at South Warwickshire, for instance, you've got a lot of business owners down there. You've got a lot of people who run businesses in the home counties in London who will come home for the weekend and they might read the Leamington Courier. They might read the Leamington Observer. So we literally deal from the Financial Times, where we had a feature on Brexit about 6 months ago, right the way down to locals. And when I'm saying about City of Culture and not looking for the obvious story, it's not just there. So you will probably be bored sick of all the media debates about Brexit. And the journalists are a bit the same, to be perfectly honest, except the politicos. All the others. And you've heard various things about what's going to happen to imports, exports, if there's extra customs. Well, there's a place in Stratford, a tourist attraction called the Stratford Butterfly Farm. And I just thought it was where kids went, saw lots of butterflies fly around and came away again. But they make they turn over £400,000 a year by exporting unhatched butterfly pupae to butterfly farms around the world. And we came up, they said if they put an extra level of customs in, those pupae will hatch while they're sitting in customs, so their business would be destroyed. Well, actually, the bloke said, or we made him say, that literally his business opportunity would have flown by the time it gets to the other side. And because it was a different take on a story that everybody was bored of, the Financial Times used it, and our client, who's the Chamber of Commerce in this area, got a full page in the Financial Times. So it's about sort of using those different channels and thinking on your feet.
In which case, please give our guests a round of applause.
Thank you.